just about ready.
Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Easy start to the show. Rob, welcome back to.
Yeah, where'd that come from?
Oh, that one was just the short blurb. You were expecting the full blast, but
I was. Wow. Let's keep it short and to the point.
Yeah.
There we go.
So
Yeah.
here we are, everyone. Welcome back. And it's been a couple of weeks, and I was on travel. Rob was on travel. We're going to do a show this week, and then I'm going to be on travel next week again. So it's crazy.
Well, and I'm going to be out of the pocket again next week too.
Oh, so then it's so it is what it is. So but here we are, and welcome everyone to the New Media Show. And yep, I feel rusty having not done the show in 2 weeks.
I know. Well, we had the Facebook show was our last episode, right? So that was a big show. I think the industry really enjoyed having access to being able to hear directly from those folks. So I think it was good. We shall see if they have the impact that is potential there. So
it was interesting. A few people that are not in the podcasting space had saw the interviews like, wow, you guys got to. I'm like, this is what we do. This is what we are, so it is what it is.
We've been doing it for years.
And I did get covered in Pod News, a unique story about being acquired. Well, acquiring a beard.
Right.
for No Shave November.
Yes.
And so raising some money here for the No Shave Month to raise awareness for prostate cancer.
And, really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yep.
Interesting.
So it's supposed to take every penny that I don't use on, product, razors, shaving cream. So in the end, it's not going to be in that much money because I'm bald. I don't go to a barber. So I'll make some arbitrary donation to the probably $100 or something to the group.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's so far, I've gotten compliments by both men and women, which is interesting. So
yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I thought there's a lot more salt than pepper though in the in it so
that's
far.
True. That's what happens. Yeah.
If I don't use
it's kind of a reversal. If only we could switch your head to be like this way, right? You'd be happier.
Yeah. Well, I don't use Grecian formula like you do, Rob, to keep my hair from being gray. So
I don't actually do that actually. So yeah.
Oh well, I was trying to get a rise out of you there, but I guess I failed to do so.
That's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's a little bit gray, and I have done it in the past, but it's not something that I've actively done over the last year. So, because why should I? don't go anywhere. So who cares? Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So
anyway, but I did go somewhere.
Yeah, you went to Florida.
Yeah.
How was the event?
It was good. Podfest Origins, which was part of Chris Grimitzo's podcasting events, was great. It was in I was in a large arena, right, in Tampa. So it was kind of in the upper areas of the seating areas, not part of the seating, but more like in the club areas and the food service areas and things like that is where the event was held in some aspects of it. And then they, at the lower level, they actually have meeting rooms and things like that. So we actually did that down there as far as the conference, but it was a melding between Bitcoin blockchain conference and a podcasting conference, which was
interesting.
Very, very interesting. There was a lot of cross-pollination between the two events, so which made the event a little bit larger because there were people there that were interested in that cybercurrency stuff, and that was an interesting mix.
It seems like a lot of podcasters that we know are into crypto, and it just seems kind of this weird meld. But from a podcast side, I know it was a event planned at the last minute.
Yeah.
Right. Did they have, was it mostly just Florida people that came in?
Yeah, I would say that would be the general comment about it. There were quite a few people that flew in from various parts, but I would say that most of the podcast people that were there were probably Florida-based people, right? The folks from the blockchain and Bitcoin side, I think we're mostly from Florida as well. So, but that's not unusual for Chris's events. I mean, he does attract a strong pool of attendees from Florida to all of his events because most of them are based in Florida. It's not like Podcast Movement that bounces around the country into different cities.
So what was the head count?
I would say for Podfest Origins, just the in-person event. So you got to keep in mind that he had multifaceted aspects of this. He also had that video conference too. So he was talking about YouTube and that kind of stuff in a separate event. So he had multiple things going on, and then multiple kind of virtual events too. So that went on before the in-person event. So it's hard to say how many total people attended if you count the virtual side, but I would say the in-person side was probably maybe 100 people probably.
Yeah.
So it was fairly small on that side. And then you add to probably another 200 or 300 or 400 people on the Bitcoin and blockchain side. And you can envision a fairly active event. I mean, it wasn't a huge venue really at the end of the day. So yeah, there was a lot of people around. So there were people to talk to and experience and go to sessions. It was basically one presentation stage that just had presentations going on all day for each of the days. So it's not like there were multiple tracks. So, most of the attendees just went to the same track. So, yeah. So it was good. And it was all recorded. So I would imagine that the content will be put out in video and form at some point on demand. So yeah, I did a presentation down there about the current state of podcast distribution and how complex that's becoming.
Right. But it's it's interesting things that are happening, from a podcaster standpoint, because there's this assumption right now. If a podcaster hears a number being proclaimed that Spotify has the highest number of user interactions, whatever they're trying to say, and trying to claim they're number one in some demographic, we're getting lots of support tickets from people that are like, what's wrong? How come I'm only 7% Spotify and I'm 53% Apple, and what's wrong? How come things are broken? We're way off the national average and blah, blah, blah. And when you respond to them and say, no, you're not off the national average, and you're on average distribution over there, then they yell at us. You're wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. We've heard this and read this and did this and did that. And we're like, no, you're wrong. Well,
it isn't that they're wrong.
Right.
They're being given information that isn't really accurate.
That's right.
It may be accurate to a certain platform, but it may not be accurate to their particular inclusion in that Spotify catalog.
That's right. So it's, and we're just now, this is starting to poke its head up, because everyone just assumes that when they get on Spotify, they're going to have 50% of the audience is participating over there. And it's just not the case. And I think it really does. I think when people look at their numbers, and again, every show is going to be a little bit different, but I think podcasters need at some point to start pushing back and calling these companies out or making these wild claims, because it's a wild claim. And, you're not a promoted show over there. You're not even first tier, second tier. You're a third tier show. And don't take this wrong. First tier would be Rogan and any signed shows on Spotify. Right. Second tier would be anyone that has a network deal with Spotify. That's second tier. So that makes up 600-700 shows. And then the rest is everyone else. And that's third tier.
And
So
you're splitting your audience with a lot of other listening platforms. A lot of those shows that maybe you're comparing yourself to are shows that are exclusive on Spotify, which means that some of those shows are getting 100% of their audience from Spotify.
right,
So that kind of skews the numbers, right? The more shows that they add that are exclusive skews the overall
it
numbers,
does. It does.
right? And but it also is it's a demographic situation too. It's a complex situation. I mean, a platform that comes out and makes a statement that the shows on my platform are getting half of their audience from Spotify. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it may be true to that platform.
Right.
It may not be true to the broader space because we don't have numbers from everybody collated into one pile,
Mm-hmm.
and that we can make these extrapolations. I mean, even Libsyn, there's a difference between Libsyn and Blueberry on
Right.
this.
Right.
I mean, we're getting 13%
Right.
of the audience on average across 70 some thousand shows, are getting audience from Spotify. You're showing what, 9% or something like that.
9%. Never
Yeah,
broke
exactly.
10% ever. But again,
Right.
it's a little bit different too because we have a percentage of shows that host with us, a percentage of shows that just use stats with us. So I'm seeing a pretty big spectrum globally.
Right.
And so I'm using, a number of over 100,000 shows in our system
Right.
to come up with that global average. Now I can go in there and cherry pick shows all day long, and they're
Right.
all over
Some
the
are going to
place.
be higher and some are going to
Sure,
be lower.
they're
Right.
going to be all over the place. But it's people
Yeah.
get really pissed off
They want to
when,
get their share, right?
when they think they are doing something wrong. They think they're doing something wrong when their stats are skewed and they're not carrying as much water as someone else is. And, they read about this 50% and blah, blah, blah. And so
Or
that's,
some of the news has been out that Spotify is bigger than Apple
yeah,
now,
well, okay,
but and that's wildly inaccurate,
widely.
when you really think about it, because if you look at the difference between how many downloads flow into the Apple platform versus the Spotify platform, it's not even close. So, oftentimes when they talk about these topics, they talk about users, right? Not so much how many actual episodes are actually delivered to a particular platform in total. Right?
So also, I've been watching some of the news commentary of people talking about their numbers coming back on after Apple made their fix to the Apple Podcast app. And actually, I've had to respond to a few customers said, "Hey, we saw a dip. Now we're back." They're all freaking out. And I'm like, listen, I said, this is a little bit of ground truth for you. I
Right.
said, I would go back and I would look at the numbers you had, let's say the entire month of September, compare that to the numbers you had the entire month of November. If you're producing the same number of shows, look at the delta there. If that delta is 25%, then you need to do a better job at getting the 25% of people that are followers subscribed to you, but not listening to listen.
Yeah.
And that's a cold, hard fact because people saw that dip. And I said, well, what does it mean? I said, it means that the people that were subscribed to you were not getting an automated download and going into a dark hole. It means that they really didn't hit play.
Right.
And
Right.
and what you saw in October was or September. What you saw in September was probably as close as you're ever going to get to true ground truth on how many people are listening to each episode.
Yeah, that's a good point, Todd. I think that does, because a certain amount of episodes get downloaded automatically and they
Right.
don't get listened to.
And again,
So,
there's other
right.
things you can do to mitigate and look at that data. But if you go back then, and it just, there was an article in Pod News this morning talking about someone was hurt by 5.7 million downloads. Well, maybe those 5.7 million downloads shouldn't have been billed in the
Right.
first place. Now, I'm going to get crucified here, but
Oh, I think you're thinking of Acast, right?
right.
I think they reported like 5 point something percent.
Oh, was it 5%? I thought it was 5 million. So if I'm
Well,
wrong,
it could have been 5 million, but I think the percentage was 5%.
it was
believe.
yeah, it was 5.9%. However, the company made.
Right.
So yeah, they cost them 50. Okay, they said it cost them 53 million lost listens, or 5.9%.
So
So,
many listens lost.
so
Right. But that may be more accurate numbers than what they're going on normally.
and here's interesting. They're talking about quarter revenue was up 89% year on year.
Right.
Listens increased to 891 million for the quarter. Estimated Apple Podcast download book cost them 53 million. So let's look at that at 900 million divided by 300 million. That tells me how big Acast is. They're not as big as I thought they were.
Yeah, I don't think that they have as many shows as you or I have on our platforms.
You know, not, and it doesn't necessarily. I know we're measuring more than they're delivering. Doesn't mean I'm monetized though. Doesn't mean all those are using my hosting service. Right. But still, they rose year on year to $30.8 million was their revenue for the year. So now let's just
those are good. Those are good revenue numbers.
Yeah. So let me. I don't know what's going on with my Mac. The question mark's missing. Oh, there it is. Let me get the calculator out here. So if we think about that for a second, if it was 30.8 million and you divide that by 12, that's 2.56 million a month in gross. So if you take the 900 million downloads I had, and we go on that 300 million downloads. So let's see if I do the math right here. If I do, so 300 million, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 divided by 1,000. This should be high school math here. So that leaves me with 300,000 billable CPMs. So if I take that and divide that by, am I going to do that right? By 2.56 million, is that going to get me their average CPM that they're earning? Let's see if I do this. 2, 5, 6, 0, 0, 0, 0 equals, no, the wrong way. 2, 5, 6, 0, 0, 0. I got to go one more 0. Okay. Divided by, yeah, there we go. I'll get it now.
Isn't it like $30 CPM?
So what it tells me is that comes up to $8.5 CPM. So considering, so let's think about this just real carefully here. That means to me that they are monetizing about a third of their content, because at little less. Yeah, let me do that right. Because if you think average CPM being about $25,
right,
then, and again, this is just Todd and Rob math here. So of those 300 million, they're only monetizing about 100 million downloads a month. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, divided by that. Multiply that by 25, bada boom, $2.5 million. So that means that they're monetizing of the 300 million downloads a month. And again, if you just look at pure raw income numbers, they're only monetizing about 100 million downloads a month. So that would make me see reporting this kind of stuff publicly is beautiful, because you can always back it out on national numbers.
Right.
But if we go back to that 53 million number, and we divide that by 3 months, that gives us 17.6 million. So 17,600,000. And I divide that by 1,000 equals, multiply that by 25. Then
but are those really lost listeners? Those
well, here's my thing. Here's my. They potentially would have billed another $440,000 if they'd have monetized every one of those 53 per
Right.
month, or 1.2 million, 1.2, 1.3 million, 1.32 million, if they had monetized those lost, and were those actually truly well, of course, the IB spec is delivered.
Right.
Now, let's think about this even further. Let's say an advertiser did pay for those 50 or 17.6 million every month.
Right.
And they were hoping that on their ad campaigns, the performance would be whatever their backed in CPA was.
Mm-hmm.
So doesn't it just say something here that potentially the space is absolutely worth a lot more on a CPM basis if they got overbilled $440,000 every month for stuff that went into a holding bucket and didn't get monetized? Then really what happened is they were still happy with performance.
Right.
It had made that inventory even more valuable.
Well, but did it actually? Did it really have an impact on?
Well, I'm just saying
ROI, because I mean, the difference between subscribing and
right.
just going in and clicking play, you know, there's a certain amount of that stuff that gets delivered but doesn't really get listened to. So was it really lost?
Well, that's the thing. So I would love to hear ACAS or someone else, and I'm ACAS. If we've gotten this wrong, please come on the show. We'd love to have you.
Right.
Would the campaigns, okay, if they had those 17.6 million lost, or the 53 total million lost for the Apple bug of downloads that were lost,
Mm-hmm.
being that they couldn't bill those because those were gone, would
Right.
it not be a great exercise to look at the performance of an advertiser in September and an advertiser in November? Look at the performance standards, how they did on a CPA base.
What's the return on investment on the campaigns?
Right.
Then
we've got these other downloads thrown back into the stack that are potentially subscribed or followed but not listened to.
Right.
So, and Apple Podcasts is not the only app. Now let's just think about this for a second. So if you take Overcast, Pocket Cast, all the popular ones, that makes up another maybe 10%.
Mm-hmm.
All of those apps do the same thing Apple Podcast does. It downloads and stores.
Right.
So you get paid for those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what if 33%? Well, they didn't say. They said we'll have to look at to back the math out. We should. So 5.9%. If they said it was 5.9%, so if we reduce, so if you got 1,000 downloads, and you reduced your reporting by 6% that you billed on, and you went to 940 and billed 940 versus 1,000. Now that doesn't make much of a 60 doesn't make much of a difference on 1,000. But when you're at 100,000 or 500,000, you're billing, that's a many multiplier. That's, then you're getting into some real numbers of overbilling potentially. So the question then is, what would happen if you subtracted 5.9% off your total downloads, and that's what you billed them every month? What that would do? Would there be a noticeable corresponding bump in performance on the advertising campaign? They completely lose everybody?
No, I agree with you. Todd, wasn't there research that came out? This was quite a few years ago, saying that on a download, I think it was 85% of downloads actually get listened to within the first 48 hours. Is that a valid statistic, Todd?
I don't know. I
I thought the Edison research folks had that number that they threw out.
here's
That
here's what I've always looked at, and this is how I plan media buys.
hmm
I take a show, and I look at the last 3 months. I take
right.
every episode of what they had for a download number
hmm
for 3 months, because Apple just announced what the rules were and how long someone wasn't going to listen before it stopped auto downloading and all that.
hmm
So
hmm
I take 3 months, and let's say each episode was 5,200, 10,300, 8,700, whatever it was. I add those up and then
hmm
divide it by the number of episodes. That's the number that I put in my RFPs.
Right.
I put an average download per episode for across 3 months into my RFPs. Now, the RFPs, and usually when we do the campaign, then I come in a little above, come in a little below. Yeah,
hmm
it isn't
hmm
perfect, because the show will have a good show, they have a bad show, whatever. But I don't use, in a planning standpoint, I don't use like only a month's worth of data to come up with what a show's going to deliver episode up, because 3 months we can
Well,
pretty
it's going
much.
to vary. It varies across episodes.
And
Yeah.
we're going, let's say show's just doing one episode a month. If I'm looking at 3 months, then if someone stopped listening in 5 episodes, Apple's
Right.
quit downloading it. Now, what we really should want, what we should really push for, is to have all the apps, have every app follow the Apple behavior. Now, why? Because they're the biggest. So Overcast, Pocket Cast, all those apps, if they followed the same rules Apple did for someone that was follow or subscribe, that would allow me to build a model that would basically get real close, even closer than we have been, in an actual listen, know what the actual listens are. And we're never going to get it perfect, but I bet you I can get it within 5% if they decide, if everyone followed the same rules.
Right. But doesn't that play into the hands to some degree of those that are advocating for just click play experiences,
Yeah,
right?
it
not
is.
not not a subscription experience. That means that you've been able to see that somebody actually actively took
It's going there
a
anyway.
a step to actually trigger the playback. Right.
It's going there anyway. The number of
Right.
people that follow and subscribe are declining by people that are active playing. And some of
Right.
it's driven by some of these other platforms that are not conducive to, you can't get on an airplane and listen to Spotify. You can't get
Right.
on an airplane and listen to Amazon Music. You can't get on an airplane and listen to Pandora.
Right.
So those platforms have, in totality, got people to be a click. Now, is this affecting the lean in? Someone has done a specific action. I don't listen to podcasts unless I am followed or subscribed. I'm old school.
Right.
And when I'm done listening to a show, I don't keep it subscribed, because it's just filling up the storage in my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I unsubscribe. So it's a thought.
Thank goodness phones have a lot more storage these days. So
Yes,
compared to when
indeed.
podcasting started. Right.
Yeah.
But I did notice in the Acast announcement here that they have escalating year-over-year losses. So I wonder what the situation is with that. So they're basically spending more than they're bringing in revenue year over year. It's up to 15% of their
Well,
revenue.
don't you know that they're a
loss.
public company, so they just put more stock out or something and, prop it up.
You would think that you would be more sensitive to that if you're a public company.
You would think
I
so.
haven't gone to look at their stock price yet, but if they're showing losses like that quarter after quarter, it's probably not helping their stock price. So, but anyway, and I saw that the Odyssey folks also reported their quarterly earnings too. It looked like they had, that's formerly Cumulus, right?
Mm-hmm.
They made around 16 million in revenue. I guess it's a total of about 5% of the total company's income. So they're a big radio. I think they're the third largest radio network, I think. Something like that.
So, speaking of semi-public companies, you guys got a
Right.
new CEO.
We did.
So, and it cracked me up because I think in an earnings call that was made recently, we are not going to have more acquisitions. And then what do? You make more acquisitions. You guys are spending more money than a drunk sailor is. Going to a cat house.
Right. Well, some of these deals are better deals than what they might appear. So who knows, right?
Okay.
So it's about evolving our strategy, and I think the Podgo acquisition was really great because it really is going after some of the things that we talk about on the show all the time, is trying to get monetization into smaller shows and have those opportunities available to smaller shows to get involved in advertising if they choose to, and having a way to do that, because oftentimes advertising, as you know, is primarily focused on big shows or larger shows, but yet we're constantly getting screamed at. I know you are, I'm sure, because we are. How do I make money for my show, or
Yep.
how do I grow my audience? All these things, and that really gets back to the topic you led off with, is people wanting their fair share, all right,
Yep.
of what the opportunity is. And if they're not growing fast enough, guess what? They're putting pressure on their hosts. They're putting pressure on platforms that they don't see as performing for them. And I think that's a pressure that's been building for a couple of years now. And I'm not sure that we all have the perfect solution to this issue of growing audience on a formulaic basis, right, where we can guarantee audience growth. Though I think a lot of podcasters would like that. I don't know what you think about that, Todd.
Well, I won't tip my hand, but I would just say that we're becoming very sensitive to all podcasters being able to monetize, and
Right.
And it's there is a challenge, and I'm just going to be upfront with podcasters that are listening right now.
There's good side and bad side.
You are going to have to decide whether or not you're willing to have a little less control.
Right. Okay, I see where you're going. Right. Yeah, that's true.
You're going to have to decide whether or not you are willing to have a little less control. And in that, it means you may not get to pick your advertiser.
Right. That's called programmatic.
That's right. And if you can swallow that, then there's going to be, I think there's opportunities. So but again, a small show, even on programmatic, is going to continue to earn a small amount of money, even if they were on a or let's say host endorsed, they're still going to make less money, because if you've only got 1,000 listeners or 2,000, it's still 1,000 or 2,000 listeners. And you can only get so much money per episode, no matter what kind of advertising you're running. If you're running a host endorsed with 2,000, maybe you're going to get $50. If you're running programmatic with 2,000 listeners, maybe you're going to end up with $20 per episode. But what is, it goes back to the early days, Rob, where we were writing check for $15, 12, 15, 25, 30. Well, we waited till people got to 50 before we wrote them a check. But, because we did set a minimum, but people were happy to get that amount. But they were doing full-on host endorsed,
Right. For that amount.
That amount. But today, the host endorsed ads are not coming down into the shows, and we've waited for it for 16 years.
Right.
17 years, and it hasn't come. And it's not going to come.
And it's actually even gotten kind of less accessible over time.
Let me say that again.
Yeah.
It's not going to come.
Right. Well, I think it depends on what we're talking about here. I think that there is a middle ground here that exists between programmatic and host reads, and that's around dynamic ad insertion and
Right.
pre-recorded host reads. So, and I think
But
there's a line that the industry is trying to figure out right now is how do we actually do host reads at scale in a programmatic / dynamic ad insertion environment. I know a lot of the big media companies have been doing it for a while. They can afford to do it. They can pre-record host reads and utilize dynamic ad insertion to get that ad into the content. But in the past, it's been a fairly expensive process to do that. Hasn't been accessible to a lot of podcasters. So at the end of the day, Todd, it's not so much whether it's programmatic or dynamic ad insertion or host reads or whatever. It's really, at the end of the day, it's about the content of the ad.
But
Really
again,
when it comes right down to it, and how it's created, how authentic is it, how fun is it, how integrated into the medium it is.
again, it has to be at scale.
Right.
You can't do. Believe me, I know this too well. We built the company
Right.
on that model, and I
Right.
understand the
Right.
work involved. Well, and again, these were host read ads, not programmatically, and are not
They were
not
baked in.
they were baked
Right.
in.
Right.
So we're
So they
talking.
will always be in there unless they get replaced.
We're talking
in the
a
future.
whole. But here's the thing: are you going to ask a podcaster? All right, this is the challenge. The podcaster has. Let's say he can make $50
Mhm.
net on an episode. All right, he does 8 episodes a month.
Mhm.
Are you going to be able to get that podcaster to read 8 varying host endorsed scripts and get those up into a system?
Right, and get turned around.
And
Right.
and then remember during their show where that insertion point's going to be, and take the time to put that metadata in there. So I think about time. I think about my time being worth X number of dollars per hour. So as a
Right.
podcaster, if you're going to spend an hour or more recording your host endorsed spots, if you're going to plan your show correctly so that it sounds like a natural transition and find a place to put it in the right spot at the right time, and then document the metadata, you're going to have a couple hours extra, maybe 3 hours. If you look at the time, extra time. So, all right. So let's say for 8 episodes, you get $400. Was that worth 3 hours of your time? I think a lot of people would say yes.
Yeah.
But for the show that's 1,000 downloads, Probably not. It's 250. So, I don't know what if you are working a minimum wage job now, or you're working in service industry and you're getting $16 to $20 an hour and you're doing a podcast, maybe it makes sense. But if you're a professional and you're working in a corporation and your salary level is a much different level, you're really going to think hard about that. So again, I think it all depends on the individual, and I don't want to be mean here. I'm just looking.
Depends on why you're doing the show too. What's the goals of the show? Is it to support an existing business, or is it to be an advertising supported show? And that drives your choices too.
And then again, we've got people that have done all this work on other platforms and gotten 60 cents.
Right. Yeah.
So that is not monetization. That's slavery. For that's not monetization. That's you're getting screwed.
Well, there's dangers here too, because the tendency that happens once you have these choices in front of you, because I've worked for a platform that had all these choices around host reads, programmatic insertion points, all that stuff. And we've talked about this on the show before too, around advertising overload.
Right.
That's the dangers going down this path too, is that there's going to be a lot of temptation to say, okay, I had 2 host reads in my show. They were both like 30 to 60 seconds, and I'm just going to add a couple of insertion points for programmatic.
I don't think. Well, yeah. Then you've got 2 programmatic, and you've got 2 host reads, and you're at an ad load of 4.
And some of those platforms that utilize programmatic give you the option to have as many as 2 to 3 ads per insertion point.
Mm-hmm.
And you can select between them being 15-second, 30-second, 60-second pre-recorded ads. And what I've seen people do is they basically take the numbers and they multiply them, right? So
Right.
each ad inserted ad is its own separate CPM,
That's right.
right?
That's
So
right.
you're getting like $8 CPM or something like that for each of those segments. So if you do 2 ads in one insertion, you're essentially getting
$16.
right, total. So if you do 2 of those, you can get $32, right?
Yep.
If you do 2 breaks and then you throw in, so let's say you're doing a host read on top of that maybe gets you another $50 or something. So you can kind of see how that kind of steamrollers into something that you can make $100 an episode or something like that. But what does that create for the listener? That creates a show that has basically up to like 6 ad spots,
Right.
which is about the upper limit of what I would ever recommend a show to have, depending on how long the show is.
And here's what I know what my limit is for my Geek and Eccentric show. It's 2. It's 2 for an hour and 10 minutes.
It's also
2.
about setting expectations with your audience too. I mean, shows that start out with no advertising and then they start adding advertising. I've seen shows go from no advertising to like 6 ads, like overnight, because you can do that with this technology. And you can go back and do ad replace onto all your old episodes too. So you basically are monetizing your back catalog as well as monetizing any future episodes that you do. And, that comes potentially with a cost. And that's your audience.
So I think we have to counsel podcasters and be very, very careful that they're going to figure it out, because what they're going to see is what happened to me was the stats were growing. I went to 3 ads and the numbers started going down. Got rid of the ad and the audience started coming back. So, you
don't always know if it was the ads or not, but
I knew it was, because people
have a sense, right?
Well, it wasn't get a sense. I had emails coming in that were crucifying me.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. That's a whole other matter.
You're like, 3 ads. You give us a break.
Right.
2, we can handle 2. And of course, I don't ever, and I don't hold the 60 seconds. I'm more of a, talking till it's done type of guy. So if I was doing a 2-minute, a 2-minute, and a 3-minute, well, of course they were pissed off.
Yeah. And I want to be clear too. I'm not poo-pooing this as all bad. I think, it's easy for us to get pigeonholed, Todd,
Sure.
and talking about advertising and dissuading people from it.
No, I don't want to dissuade anybody.
Yeah. I mean, but we like to tell the truth, because what we don't want to have is people getting into something and then making a mistake with it that hurts them instead of hits their goals. And then that creates a domino effect of other issues. So I'm a proponent of dynamic ad insertion if it's done responsibly.
Right.
And that includes programmatic too.
Yeah.
So that's my position on it. And I've worked extensively in programmatic. I've worked extensively in the dynamic ad insertion stuff, going way back to my time working for Podcast One back in 2014. So involved in that, and then working for Spreaker. Spreaker has an extensive programmatic platform that I worked with when I was there. And so I can see the 2 worlds and how they coalesce and sometimes don't coalesce.
Right.
So, right.
So anyway, that's, what we're seeing. And it's just
that's our soapbox for the day.
Yeah. Right. Da-da-ding, 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 ding, ding.
Right.
I think that overall, though, the news has slowed down a little bit. It's gotten a little quieter.
it's gotten quieter, but it's also gotten more international. Of course, that's probably James Cridland's
Right.
contribution to the space, is that we're definitely hearing more about things that are happening outside of the U.S. In Brazil and in the Middle East, and there's in Dubai and things like that. That things are happening outside of the U.S. more and more. I keep hearing about it too. I don't know if you've been talking to the podcast show that's coming up in the spring in London, but they've got a pretty aggressive program going over there with a
except
big
they won't
event.
except they won't tell me how many actual registrations they have today. They're claiming they're going to have 6,000 people at that event.
They probably don't have any registrations yet. Who knows?
Well, they're giving all these predictions, and I'm like, okay. I've been to 2 or 3 live events already, and the numbers were way down.
Yeah,
and
well, even Podcast Movement had that happen, right?
So, you still have draconian travel restrictions in many of these countries to get in and out. There's, because the UK Brexit, it's not as easy for people to travel into the UK or out of the UK, and it's not as clean. There's additional paperwork you have to do.
Well, I have heard that cases are trending up again in Europe right now.
So if
COVID,
this is going to continue forever. It's get vaccinated and be done with it.
Right.
The what was I going to say? So don't I want. Here's what I want. All right, for me to pack up, go across the pond, and take a couple of people. That's going to be probably, before it's all over, 20 grand, maybe 15 grand. I want to support the event, want to go over and do it. But if I go over there and they promise me 6,000 attendees and there's only 1,000, then I want attendance guarantees to attend, to exhibit. And if you don't deliver those attendees, I get a refund.
Right.
I get some money back.
That's a good point, Todd. Yeah.
Now,
it'd be interesting to have an event do that. I've
never
heard of an event doing that.
I sent an email back to the person that's talking to me and say, I laid this out, and it's crickets. They're probably, well, we're not going to talk to them. But I'm serious. If I'm going to go spend big money to go to it, and we want to support events, don't get me wrong. But we are in a different era right now. Things have changed.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's not changing back anytime soon.
Right. Yeah. That's been painfully clear at times as well in my own experience here over the last couple of months. Right.
Robert said podcasting should be paid on downloads, not CPMs. It is. It is on downloads. It's per 1,000 downloads is what it is. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
CPM is a cost per million, or it should be cost per thousand. It's what it really means.
It's a cost per milli is what it is.
Yeah.
Not even a million.
Right. A mil. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think events need to be held accountable to their promises, right? Especially, first year events, I think is probably, because that's what this is. This is a grand experiment. Now, granted, if you look at the companies that are sponsoring it already, they are companies that are based in the UK typically, or they are big multinational corporations that are participating in that event so far.
And they are not. And it's so far, it does not smell to me to be an event that is going to. It's very commercial at this point.
Yeah, they're piggybacking on a festival, a week-long festival that will play in the background behind the 2-day event.
That's never boded well for a podcast event to be attended by podcasters. I think that's a mistake.
What, to have a festival behind it?
Yeah.
It's a debatable thing. I think they're catering to listeners as well as they are podcasters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an interesting, I think that was played around with at quite a few events that I went to, and it typically mainly happens outside of the U.S. right now. I think we had some events that played around with it early on, like what was it? PodCon was one that played around with that
Mm-hmm.
live podcasts as part of the conference, and that one disappeared. And then was it the podcast festival down in Los Angeles that tried to do the same thing, and that fizzled away. So there isn't a lot of strong history of events combining festivals with a conference and it having it, scale or be successful.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I just don't get me wrong. I don't want to poo-poo the event, but
I don't either. And I also think that we are moving into a new era, and this gets back to what you were saying too, of the internationalization of podcasting. It's definitely the things that I keep hearing outside of the US is that things are growing faster outside of the US than in the US right now in the podcasting realm.
I don't believe that.
You don't?
No, I think based on what I see is the U.S. numbers are keeping pace. Now, what's changed is there's definitely, the women are kicking butt right now. They are leading the pack by far. A new podcast being created. So
you're speaking more broadly on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. And I think we've seen that trend line for a while now.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. And if it is growing internationally, great. I hope so. I hope it continues. But just from what I see, it's about pacing the same. So.
Well, I think what's different is the expectations of the medium are a little different outside of the U.S. than in the U.S. and what content creators think about, since a lot of those markets outside of the U.S. are very radio centric in how they think about media. That tends to skew their expectations around content and accessibility, and I think it's been slow to ramp up on the indie side, where a lot of the commercial interests were focused mainly on the larger media companies that were in those countries. I think Canada is a great example of that, but also down in Australia and things like that. And I do think that those markets have progressed a lot faster towards the professionalization of podcasting than what originally happened here in the U.S., where it was kind of like really all about indies and all about breaking the mold of radio. I don't see that happening so much outside of the U.S. of the breaking of the mold of radio. I think that they see radio and podcasting to be a little bit more aligned than I think we do here in the U.S.
Well, I am hearing that there is, since the quote unquote end of COVID here in the United States, and the draconian measures that were taking place across the country, I think what radio is starting to see is a huge, I was told they're seeing a huge influx in advertising. People are marketing again, spending a lot of money. So
Yeah.
I think, but at the same time, I think radio had a watershed moment when for a period of 12 to 14 months, things just went
Shut
dry.
Right.
So I think they have this realization now that they can't be a one-trick.
Shift the model.
They can't be a one-trick pony anymore.
Right.
And so we're starting to see more radio folks really embrace podcasting in a big way. So it's quite the, compared to 5 years ago, it's pretty remarkable to see.
Yeah, and I'm not. Maybe you're seeing the same thing. I'm not getting invited to speak at radio events much anymore. Of course, there hasn't been radio events, but I think that they've kind of established their own people on that side. I think for many years, you and I were going to probably half of the events we went to were radio events.
Yeah.
But then those have kind of slowed down a little bit, obviously with the pandemic, but also just that they've got their own podcast experts now that go to those events. So,
we're still, we're still taking calls from radio stations that are launching networks and still doing those deals. So, they're still looking for solutions out there.
Right.
We just, it's kind of funny because we had I got to be careful. We had a network, very big network. that had been hosting on a quote unquote free platform figure out that that wasn't going to work. It just wasn't going to work. There was limitations in the platform. They just given up too much control and a whole bunch of other things, and came over and talked to us, and we basically laid it out, and they had some sticker shock. And it's not for a corporation, a big corporation. It shouldn't have been a big, and especially with the number of shows, the multiples. And I'll say it was more than 10, but less than 50, somewhere in between, launching that many shows. I'm like, okay, you're launching this many shows, brand new shows, straight out of the gate, but you figured in cost for talent, and all this other stuff. You figured that all out, but then you get a little gun shy of a hosting bill that might be $300-400 a month. That it's like really,
just take that show over to Anchor, right?
And well, that I won't say where they were before, but they realized that limitation,
right?
And so that got them a little sticker shock. I'm like, yes, we have a building, we have people, we pay our people benefits, we have a hosting bill. No, we can't be free, and
right.
I don't have a bottomless pit of money.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Stitcher announced that they had signed an exclusive national distribution deal with U.S. public radio station NHPR, which I think is New Hampshire Public Radio. I think.
So why did they break from the mold? That's the question. Because NPR's been pretty hardcore in keeping their affiliates all in the family.
Yeah, so something is cracking in that exclusivity window there. That's for sure.
It does make you go,
And I did see that Clubhouse has launched replays, which means that they're now, I know who? Ha. Has launched recording abilities.
Oh.
I don't know if you saw that or not, Todd.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Yeah, I know. They're actually recording the AAC format at 56 kilobit stereo.
Oh, wow.
At 48 kilohertz sample rate.
Lovely. 56K. Whoo, stereo. Wow.
Well, they thought that they were probably getting a higher quality by going with the 48 kilohertz on the sample rate. Right?
Yeah, whatever.
So that'll bump the quality up a little bit. So I think this puts it at probably the equivalent of a 64K stereo file, right?
Okay, great.
On an MP3 format, right?
Right. Okay.
But the 48 kilohertz is a non-standard sample rate for podcasting.
What company are we talking about again?
Clubhouse.
Oh, they're still around.
Yeah, they're still around. Well, they keep adding new features to the platform.
Mike says 56K
credit for trying.
56K stereo will sound wonderful in big capital letters. Yeah, that sounds like a damn broken record. Shh.
Well, the AAC supposedly that format is more efficient in its encoding than MP3 is. So,
right.
It probably doesn't sound as bad as we maybe think it does.
Yeah.
So, right. But it's still, I mean, taking it out of there means you got to drop it into a wave editor of some sort, and then you have to re-encode it again. So, just that's one of the downsides of having a low bitrate master file, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you have outcome is because you have to re-encode it again, you even lose more quality. So they would have been smarter to get an export at like maybe a 96K or something like that. So at least you can get a decent quality on the export. Yeah.
Robert says, I meant per download. 1,000 downloads equals $1,000 or whatever the download rate is. Podcasting is deserves it. But I tell you, if we could get $1 a download, whew. But if you got to think about it, Robert, from this stance, if you are out and you're spending, let's say $50 to acquire a new customer. When you do any type of advertising, it all comes back to what the goal was. Did we acquire a customer? Did we sell a product? Did we get a lead? And most companies, well, not all, but most smart companies will know what their acquisition rate is, how much money they have to spend to acquire a customer. Certain podcasting companies spend an enormous amount of money to acquire a customer, almost a year's worth of their hosting bill to acquire one customer. But it's really crazy. Anyway, so if I, let's say that I'm selling whatever it may be, whatever product, and and I know that it's cost me about $30 to acquire a customer through traditional digital TV, or radio, whatever type of advertising we're doing, and you go out and you charge way more on a podcast and do not deliver an acquisition cost at or below $30, they're not going to spend any more money with you. They're going to spend money where they can that meets their acquisition rates. So therein lies the challenge. We all think, now, if you're a neurosurgeon and you have a super niche show, then you can probably charge $20 a listener versus, or $20 a download versus $25 per thousand. It all depends on the content. So there's a lot of context here. But generally, I always, this is something I tell podcasters, I want $600 an episode. And I'm like, okay, you're going to get that for one episode or two. And that advertiser will never come back because you weren't able to deliver what you want. I know a big advertiser, a big show, it costs $20,000 to advertise on their podcast. $20,000 an episode is what it costs to be on the episode. And ran a campaign on that show, and it actually recommended, and I've shared this before, I'm sure, told the client, this isn't going to work. This is not a good show to run this product on. I actually made him sign a disclosure statement saying that they won't come back and ask for make goods or anything because we'd advise them not to advertise on this show. And they spent the $20,000 anyway and got 0 referrals.
Wow.
Ultimately, the guy that signed the deal at that company got fired. He got fired because he spent $20,000 and got 0 return.
Right. You basically threw your money and burned it.
Whereas if they'd listened to us and we'd have spread that $20,000 across 30 shows, they'd have got a much better return on their value, and we'd aligned them with shows that made sense for the advertiser. And we may have been able to get a little bit of a premium on the CPM. But the challenge that we have to really understand is that it's a value. You're doing a transaction here. You're giving value for value. And the value they're giving you is their money to advertise their stuff. Now, if you have a listener-supported show, your listeners give you money for the value you're doing your content. Advertising support, so the advertiser's giving you money for the value of your content and your word and your ability to deliver a great host endorsement and be convincing enough to say, go buy this, type of water or whatever it may be. So I think that oftentimes content creators get, and they don't take this wrong way, but a little ahead of themselves.
Yeah.
And I see it in podcast forums all the time because you got these snake oil salesmen that are in the podcast forums. They're saying, oh, you deserve, and you should get $300 an episode. Let me show you how to do that. Well, I've told those types of people, I'll give you all my inventory. I'll give you every download in my system. You can deliver those types of rates. I will let you have it all. You can have it all. You can sell it all day long. I'll just take a few points. You can have it, and we're good. Crickets. Yeah, right. Because no one delivers that. Again, but show by show, if you're doing a show that's very niche, that audience is very valuable. Maybe.
Right. Todd, also, this kind of came out while we were not during the time frame of us not doing the show, but Evo Terra, I thought it was entertaining his comments about running Facebook ads to promote a podcast, right?
See, I've had opposite. I've had good success running Facebook
Have
ads.
you?
Yeah.
Have you? I guess, at the end of the day, it's about the ad, right?
Yeah. It's about the copy. It's about the creative. It's about.
And that's the bottom line to this whole conversation about advertising in general. People get so focused on the technology of the advertising and lose focus on the importance of the content of the ad. I don't hear people talking about the content of the ads being
No.
the most important thing, right? And that's exactly what this is. Because Evo Terra, I guess he ran a campaign, and he says he spent $360 and he got 10 new listeners.
$36 per listener acquisition cost.
Right. That probably.
But how did he know he really got 10? How did he know he got 10?
That's a very good question, Todd. I don't know how you would.
Mm-hmm. Did he say in the show, if you came here because of the Facebook ad, send me an email?
Yeah, I mean,
it's like
there's no attribution linked up
no.
Here,
so
right.
How did you determine you got 10? Sometimes it's about the direct result. Well, let me just back up for a second. My Facebook page and the number of listens to this show and my other show are doing very well. We're doing very well on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually shocked.
On the advertising side?
No, on how many people are listening to. Now, my Geek News Central show, my numbers are up 20%.
So are you talking about the integration on pages, or are you talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
My numbers are up 20% from Facebook on Geek News Central. This show is not as much, but I seen a dramatic increase. And
so what do you attribute that difference?
Good question. I'm asking the audience who's listening via Facebook. Please email me. I want to know why, how, when, where are you existing? Are you listening to places? I'm asking those questions. And
your Geek News Central show appeals to a much potentially larger pool of potential listeners. So than this show does.
Right.
This show caters to a fairly narrow niche. Yeah. Right. So your potential upside with Geek News Central is just generally more.
And I'm not alone. I've heard other people come to me. They're coming to me. I'm getting emails periodically and saying, "What is this? Or, where's this coming from?" Mm-hmm. And we go in and we look. Now, I think Facebook has a known issue. They've got like 5 user agents, and some stuff they're not reporting. It's a mess. They say they're going to fix it, and they need to. Hey, I know you're listening. I think listening. Fix the user agent stuff now, please. Make that a priority one fix, because I'm having to like dig through data. It shouldn't be this hard to come up with the actual percentages for Facebook, but and some of it's probably looks like Apple. So
it depends on what they're reporting through. Right.
What kind of phone they have. It's the whole deal. So fix the user agent thing. Get that done, Facebook, please. And then maybe I can talk even more boldly about you. But yeah, I'm seeing dramatic uptick.
I would expect that would be the case. I mean, if you've got community on Facebook, I would think that would be the case.
But my Facebook page really doesn't have that many people that are following it. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Let me look at what the total followers is for page. So there's about 2,600 likes of the page is what that current my Geek News Central page has got. Now let me see if I can do this here. Yeah, so 2,600 people have liked that. Now, if I go and look at the new media show, that page, we have 449 likes on that page.
Right.
So if you haven't liked our page on Facebook yet, please do so. But we can see here we're live, and you can actually see that's kind of a mirror and mirror type of thing going on. That's fun. So ultimately, Facebook has an opportunity here to deliver some real numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And my prediction is they'll be the number 2 podcast listening platform in under a year.
Yeah, that would be my guess too. I agree with you.
I think they're going to eclipse Spotify by
just the scale.
Yeah.
It's just right. There's really no other platform like it, except for maybe Google. But Google is kind of, I think, in a transition phase right now. So we shall see what happens from them.
I'm not going to count them out.
Yeah. No, I would never count out Google in this capacity with what they have going on.
But you guys kind of alluded to it a little bit, that you saw the Facebook numbers were promising.
Yeah. No, I think, and it makes sense that it's promising. I don't think it's going to shock anyone. You just look at the scale of that platform and the engagement that they have. It's just off the charts. I mean, there's no other platform like it. So, and I did notice also iHeart reported their results, their public company. So I guess they had podcast revenue of 64 million for the quarter. That's almost double year over year on the podcast revenue side.
I'm actually pretty shocked it's that much.
That's only 6.8% of the overall company revenue. So think about it in that context.
But still, 64 million is a pretty big number. I would have not expected them to be that high on the number of shows they have. That's
like a little bit more than twice the size of the Cumulus numbers that we talked about earlier. The Audacity folks. So that tells you a little bit of about their difference in their scale of their platform, right?
But if you think, if we go back and think about iHeart, and if we think about Spotify, and then the amount of money that Spotify has spent.
That's revenue. That's not profit.
Yeah, they've got a long way to go to make that investment pay off.
Right.
And what are they up to? 800 million or something like that they've spent. They've spent a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
And all these deals they've signed, those are millions each. So
did you see the Live One numbers? That's the owners of Podcast One that came out?
Yeah. Divided by 6, or you think that's pretty accurate?
They're claiming it doesn't say what it said downloads in the year ending September 30th. So this is a 12-month number, 2.48 billion downloads, Todd.
Oh, really?
I don't believe that's IAB certified numbers, though.
2.4 billion.
2.48
billion for them for a year.
Billion downloads in the year ending September 30th.
I don't think my calculator.
The company made a net loss of more than $15 million. The stock price.
Hold on.
18%.
Hold on. You said they had a what? A net loss?
A net loss of more than $15 million. And the stock price sank 18.5% as a result.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get the calculator out. I don't know if my calculator will go into the billions. So that's 2, 4, 8, 0. So 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Is that enough zeros? Let's see here. There is, all right, there's a million. There's 100 million. Okay, so divided by 1,000 equals 24, is that right? 2.48 million billable units. I think I did that right. Maybe I'm missing a zero here. That's high school math going on. Somehow I think I'm wrong, but let me.
I think it's like 248 million, right?
if it's billion,
Or no.
billion
No.
is 2, 4,
Yeah,
8, 0,
right.
0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay,
Right.
so 2 point. Boy, that's a lot of money. If we could just if we could retire, Rob. I'll just
That's just
take.
downloads.
Yeah, so I know. So let's again, we'll divide that by 1,000 and multiply that by 25, and let's now. That ends up with $62 million. Now let me divide that by 6.
Well,
Well,
that platform only does 50-50 deals.
okay. Well, again, my point is 2.4. Okay, let me I better be careful. 2.48 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, please at this time put on your boots, and don't put on just boots, put on hip waders, because a river of bull crap is coming our way. 2.48 billion downloads. Please.
In 12 months.
Please.
Yeah.
And they lost how much money? $15 million?
No, $15 million.
If you had 2.48 billion downloads, they would by far be the richest podcast hosting company in existence.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see if they announce their overall revenue numbers here.
2.48 billion.
Because they are a public company. Yeah.
Mike doesn't believe me. Facebook will be number 2. I believe within 1 year, Facebook will be number 2.
I think there's a pretty high likelihood that's the case. I can't imagine any other platform besides Google.
If Spotify move 8% for us,
right?
Yeah, come on, we'll see. I might be wrong.
Yeah,
I look at my own.
So
yeah,
go ahead. So I found their numbers. It shows for 6 months ending September 30th, revenue increased 142% to a record 60.7 million. Now that's not exclusively podcasting. That's Live XLI, Podcast One, Slacker Radio, Gramophone Media.
That's still an impressive number, 60 million.
Right.
Yeah.
That's for a 6-month period.
So I wonder they don't tell what percentage of the business is a podcast business.
That's what I'm scanning to try and find here. I don't see that they break it out, which would make sense.
Yeah,
but they wouldn't.
Yeah, it would be nice to see it.
Right.
2.48 billion.
But it probably
that is true. That is not IB certified. They've never become IB certified, have they?
Not that I'm aware of.
So, isn't that funny? Ladies and gentlemen, isn't that funny that one of the biggest companies that have 2.48 billion downloads for the last preceding year reported that number and had a $15 million loss, yet they're not IB certified. And
there's a history of numbers being rather inflated.
Didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Platform. I know, but I can say it because I used to work there. So
I always.
Inflated is probably not the right term. Let me take that back. It's more that it's not being filtered like an IAB certified platform would filter it. It's just not. So it does. So it says here they have 235 shows, exclusive shows, and it produces more than 300 podcast episodes per week.
Let's see here. Let me divide that again by 12. Yeah, that's more like it. So I'm suspecting.
It still doesn't share what the revenue numbers were.
No,
for
but
podcasts.
If someone told me they had 34 million downloads a month, yeah, I think that's even a little high. I use the divisor. I would say that they could have 34. In my guesstimation, Todd's factoring factor that I've always used with them, I would say they have about 34 million downloads a month. And now, how many shows? Divided by how many shows? 125?
I think it was 235.
And then how many episodes a month?
Was it 300?
Oh, so there we go. That's the number. Look, divide it by 300 again. That means that each show averaged out has to get 114,814 downloads an episode with Todd's math. Now, let's go back up and do their math. 2480. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, that was 12 months, right? That was a 12-month period?
Right.
Divided by 12. So, and then, taking that number, so.
Well, I think actually the 2.48, okay, yeah, it would be for 12 months.
Okay,
right.
So I divided that by 12.
Right.
Okay, that gives me their monthly number. Now they've got 300 episodes a month.
Right.
See, this is where things get interesting. No, this number is going to blow everyone away. So I'm going to divide by 300, and that means, oh my God, Rob, we have a miracle.
We do?
We do.
Oh, wow.
We have 300 shows. No, 300 episodes on that network that are getting a minimum of 688,000 downloads per episode. Each of them, on average, have to get 688. See, this is where someone didn't do the math. 688,888 downloads per episode per show.
On a non-IAB certified platform.
Now, that's using their numbers. And let me throw Todd's devising factor back into there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to throw my division in there. And still, every one of those 300,000 shows still has to get 114,814 downloads every episode. That's using my math. That's using the math that I would say might be reasonable.
Right.
I need more than please bring the scuba gear over. I need the scuba tank and the air mask, please. The room is very fast filling. They're not a public company, are they?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they're actually traded on the NASDAQ. Their LVO is their trading symbol. LVO. Live One. So these are stock market public company reported numbers.
So there's this cool thing that happened after Lehman Brothers went out of business.
Right.
And left millions of people investments down the drain and did huge financial wreckage across America and the world. There's this act that came out, it was called Sarbanes-Oxley.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, their stock market closed today, closed at $2.30 a share.
So just so I'll say this is Todd's opinion only.
Mm-hmm.
This is my speculation only.
Right.
Boy, I would love to be able to audit those log files.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, that's never going to happen. So their 52-week high on their stock was $6.95 a share. Their 52-week low was $1.78.
Oh, very close to being delisted.
And it looks like in between November 9th and 10th, they dipped down to like $2.20 some cents.
Here's the thing: the financial numbers are the financial numbers. I'm sure their financial numbers are absolutely right. I'm sure that
right,
they are
right.
dead
They're
on.
reporting their revenue and their
Yeah,
losses,
yeah,
whatever that is,
I'm sure.
accurately.
But that
Right,
2.48 billion download
right.
number,
They don't really have to be accountable for that.
nope, because they didn't say how much revenue that generated or anything.
Right.
So
Conveniently.
just like, hey, Rob, did you know that last month I myself counted in log files over 1 million downloads? I physically counted the log files. I went through and looked at every line and got over 1 million, counted over 1 million.
Wow.
Amazing, isn't it?
That's good.
It is. Think about,
Right.
I didn't have time to eat, sleep, nothing. I just looked at spreadsheets all day.
Right. Yeah.
I'm being a sarcastic. You know,
Yeah.
if you're whoever is doing the fuzzy math, hey, Rob.
Well, everybody knows what's going on.
Rob. Well,
Right.
we got 300 shows, 300 episodes a month. What's and this is a conversation Todd's hypothetically having with an imaginary. No, this is some imaginary being. We got to make the network look great, right?
Yeah.
And if we have if all of our episodes get more than 100,000 downloads, that's going to make us look like superstars. We're going to be lauded as the kings of podcasting. All of our shows. It's 100. And someone over in the corner says, Todd, you're not thinking big enough.
Right.
It wasn't 100. It wasn't 100,000. It's got to be 800,000 downloads per episode. Then we are the undisputed kings of podcasting, and our 300 episodes annually will get 2.48 billion downloads. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a beautiful story.
In my in my opinion, a fairy tale. Now,
it's
come
all
on.
about perceptions, Todd. That's what it's all about.
It's all about perceptions.
Right. Right.
Just like and we're almost out of the time. It's just like, Todd, hey, I want to run advertising in my show. I said, congratulations, I'm doing great. Yeah, I've got 35,000 downloads per episode. I'm like, congratulations, we'd love to rep you and put advertising in your stuff. I just need to do one thing. I need you to run our stats for 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks we can have another call and get you on board, get you ramped up, get you in front of the media buyers. Dun da da da. And they get on the stats and dun da da da. I haven't had one of those in a long time, but those were always fun in the past.
Yes. Yeah.
Rick says inflated is not the word I would use.
Yeah, it's not. It just was never accurate to begin with.
Oh, right? My God.
Yeah.
Hey, none of us have a clean house completely.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a bumpy road to get into stats in the podcasting space. No question about it. There's nobody in the space that has a 100% clean track record.
No, we've all had to make adjustments here and there.
Yeah.
Most of us made the adjustments after when we were getting IAB certified. If there had to be an adjustment, it had to be made.
Right. And we've always said that those that put it off are going to face the most pain.
Right.
And I believe that it is mostly over with for most people in the podcasting space.
Yeah, I think almost everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. There's still a few out there, though.
Yeah, there is. But anyway, it's entertaining to be able to talk. Did you guys have an entertaining time Do any of you have insider information? Does any of you sitting on information you'd like to share with us for us to debate and talk about during the podcast? Well, we would love to hear from you. Sadly, we're not going to be here next week because I have to go have a quarter-sized hole drilled out of my back. So I'm having my follow-on dermatologist appointment.
Yeah, I'm having a medical procedure done too. So yeah.
Well, they're going down to the muscle, or to the white layer before the muscle. That's where they're going to. So I should have a good owie on my back when I return. I'm sure there's going to be a few days of Tylenol as that heals up, but should make for a nice scab war story. Again, for those of you that were not aware, I had a very, 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 very bad pre-melanoma in the severe category. If you have a spot on your body, please go see your doctor. Don't waste any time, because it's the number 2 killer of people in this country, or I think in the world.
Right.
So if something looks funny, go have it looked at, please. It doesn't cost too much to have a biopsy, even if you don't have good insurance. Dermatologists are relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
Because all they're doing is taking a piece of skin out and sending it to the lab.
And sampling it.
Yeah. So it's where it will cost you your life if you don't have it dealt with. So I'm Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News on Twitter.
And I'm also on Twitter at Rob Greenlee. And you can find me over there and on all the other social platforms too. So you can find me anywhere. And then if you want to send me an email, send it to robg@libsyn.com, and love to hear from you. And, Todd and I won't be back next week, but we will the following week, hopefully. And I think we're going to have a guest on that's has started a new association. So it's the National Podcast Association. So we shall see.
We shall. And everyone, thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of our little family of podcasters. And we did get it. I don't have it in front of me. We did get a sticker and a letter.
Cool.
Oh man, I didn't. I'm sorry. I'll read it on the next show. I'll put it here on the table. Make sure I have it. So, if you want a sticker, there's a sticker from the show. There's an address on the website. Send us your sticker. We'll send you a little sticker pack back as well for your laptop or whatever. But everyone, thanks for being here. Thanks for being again listener of the show. Everyone, take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.